Back here on Sportsline, taking your calls tonight, talking about the Titans, where they go from here, talking about Tom Brady and the Super Bowl upcoming, championship weekend yesterday, got into some bigger NFL topics and refereeing and all that. Anything you want to get into about the championship games, about the upcoming Super Bowl or the Titans, I threw out the question that I've been mulling around all day, and there is no way to get an answer here. So I have tried very hard not to give you a definitive, and I don't think it's appropriate to give the definitive back that it definitely would not have happened. But it's kind of fun to have the debate, I think, is the Titans were in the mix, at least from the outsider's perspective, to bring Tom Brady here last year in free agency. They decided to stick with Ryan Tannehill, go long-term with him, as opposed to the guy who was turning 43. Makes a lot of sense, right? Tannehill had a good year. You win the division, right? No problem with that. Seems like it worked out well. But then Titans lose in the first round, and Brady does the magic again and has Tampa Bay, a team that hasn't even been to the playoffs in a dozen years, into the Super Bowl. Could he have worked that magic if he was the Titans quarterback? It's an interesting question. I don't know, though. We'll see. Let's go to Jim. Jim has been waiting for a while. We appreciate that. Jim, thanks for doing that. You are now up here on Sportsline.
Oh, well, thank you, Steve. The old question that Tom Brady would have made it here in Nashville, who knows? I trust the people that run this organization to do the right thing. They did the right thing. I think they did the right thing. They kept the man that got them there last year, and now, they're trusting the fact that listen, we're not going to win them all. But the truth of the matter is, I'm liking Tannehill for the future of the Titans. Don't get me wrong. Tom Brady's a bad boy. I mean, he's a bad boy. There ain't no doubt about that. But listen, we're looking at the future, and he's not the future. He's the past. So I appreciate the smarter people that run the organization to do the right thing. And that's all I'm saying. Listen, the guy is great. There's no doubt about it. He's an amazing quarterback. But we got to look at the future, and he's not the future for me.
Jim, I really appreciate your thoughts. And I think the majority of people, since I kind of posed this question on Twitter and all that, agree with you. The only thing I will say is I think you're right. I think they made the decision because of the future, because it was Brady's going to be 43. Is he going to play 1 more year, 2 more years, maybe 3? They signed Tannehill for 4. I think they thought this is a window where the Titans had 3 or 4 years. Tannehill was a guy who they could count on being around for 4 years, maybe in a way that Brady couldn't. But a couple of things. The way Brady's played this year in a new system, in a new place, I don't think he looks like a guy that's going to retire tomorrow or next year or maybe even the year after that. He just looks like a guy who's still having fun and loving to play. So I'm not even sure that was a legitimate thought if you're looking at a 3 or 4 year window, because I don't think there's any guarantee Brady will be done by then. But the other thing is, you say you don't win them all. Brady wins an awful lot of them. And I mean, I know the point you're making. And again, I think Tannehill's a great quarterback. And I think the Titans have a chance to win big with him as their quarterback. The only question is, when you have a guy that wins as much as Brady and is now doing it at a new spot, could that spot have been Tennessee? Could he have somehow made this team, the intangibles, the belief, attracting a couple more free agents, whatever it be, could he have somehow made them just a little better? Could he have gotten them slightly over the hump in a different way? Could he have won that game when Henry got bottled up in the playoffs because he'd been there before? And let's face it, Ryan Tannehill's played 4 playoff games. Brady's about to play his 10th Super Bowl. I mean, there's a difference there. There's a reason why he's the GOAT, and then there's a bunch of other just really good quarterbacks in the history of the league. And would that make a difference on this team? There is no way to ultimately get the answer. But as Brady's doing his thing now in another place, I think for this week or so, it's a question you can ask. Probably ask again if he wins the Super Bowl. And then you move on into the offseason. No, Tannehill's your quarterback. He's good, and this offense is going to be good for a while with him. But I do think there's some people out there who wonder about the what if in the situation. Back to the phone. Say hello to Michael. Michael, welcome to Sportsline.
Yes. Just wanted to say again about I believe that Tom Brady is the best that ever played quarterback and best that ever played any team sport. And there's a story. I'm from the Tampa Bay area, and when Brady was first signed to come into Tampa Bay, he went out on his own to do a workout at a public park. And so he's out this public park, and this police officer came out, and because the parks were supposed to be closed. And so the police officer got him and said, hey, buddy, you can't be out here running in the park, and we're closed. And then by the time he realized who it was, he was, Tom Brady. And so he was very embarrassed, and then somehow the mayor found out, and the mayor said, we need to issue him an apology. And Tom said, no, I'm not looking for that. He said the guy was doing his job, and I appreciate him doing his job. And that just shows you what kind of quality guy Tom Brady really is, because I think I'm not surprised at all that they're in the Super Bowl. I said at the beginning that they would get there when they signed him because he'd bring players around him, and he is the kind of guy that can bring those players in. So maybe looking at Tennessee, had he come to Tennessee, maybe he brings in these players, these young guys who want to play with him for a couple of years, and in a few years, in 4 or 5, they're still around. And maybe Tom can help bring a quarterback in they draft and say, hey, I can work with you and get you to where you can play somewhat like I can play. And that's kind of how I look at it, because I think he's a quality guy. He's absolutely a great player, and I think Tennessee missed out by not bringing him in.
Well,
and they should have gone after him.
It was your benefit then, Michael, and everybody else from Tampa Bay. We appreciate your call and thoughts tonight. Look, again, this is the hypothetical, and you do it because he's the greatest of all time. You know, he's not just another quarterback, and you potentially had that chance. And I will say one more thing before we take a quick break. Remember, this team has gotten to this place, the smart people, the John Robinsons and those people within the organization. They've built themselves up from a franchise that stunk 5 years ago, to this place where they are a 5 straight years winning team, got to the AFC Championship game, won an AFC South by taking a risk. Remember, after 2 seasons, they built themselves into a winner. They got to a playoffs. They won a playoff game with Mike Mularkey. And they said, you know what? This is really nice. Mike Mularkey did a good job. But for us to really get to where we want to go, for us to really win, Mike Mularkey's not the guy. We got to find somebody else. We got to change this up a little bit. And they fired a coach that went 9-7 in back-to-back years and won a playoff game. They fired him to go out and hire Mike Vrabel and bring in a different coaching staff and, a different mindset. And that led to the latest round of success, which is better. And there was a risk at the time. But they were trying to hit the ceiling up there for success. And they did it with Vrabel. And that's the thing about Tannehill versus Brady is, and I argued this at the time. And I'm not trying to say that I know anything better. And I'm certainly not trying to say I know for a fact Brady would have gotten the Titans to the Super Bowl. But the one thing I was saying at the time is Brady's been there. Tannehill's good, really good for this offense. But he hasn't been to that place very often. And Brady's done it time and time and time again. So if you're looking at it and saying we need to win one game, or we need to win that game to get to the game and then win the ultimate one, who's better in the history of the sport to do that than Tom Brady was? That was my argument then, and I think it comes back a little bit now when you watch how he did it again in Tampa Bay. And again, it isn't just about status quo. It isn't just about keeping it the way it is or keeping your guy. Sometimes it has nothing to do with your guy. As I've said time and time again, Tannehill's great. Probably should have been a Pro Bowler. So it's not the production of Tannehill. It's that when you have a chance to get an all-time great, sometimes you have to take a risk to think about it, to do it. And they didn't do it in that situation. And so that leaves them open to some second guessing at this point. Got to take a break. Back after this.